former President Jacob Zuma lashed out at the conduct of the Constitutional Court and the judiciary. He was responding to yesterday's application by the State Capture Commission to have the Constitutional Court holding him in contempt of court and sending him to jail for 2 years. Zuma also decried the inclusion of Justice Dhaya Pillay in the application, saying she was hostile and insulted him in the past. For more on this, let's now welcome Professor Isaac Shai, who is an associate professor of public law at the University of South Africa, that is UNISA. A very warm welcome to you, Prof. Great to see you here on SABC News.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Now, is there any basis to the claims or insinuations that have been made by the former president that, you know, the judiciary may be compromised? You've been hearing quite a lot on this topic in the last, I'd say, year or so. The former president points to possible bias by Justice Dhaya Pillay as an example of the bias that is had for him by the judiciary. Considering some of the public statements that have been made by the justice in the past about the former president, does he have a leg to stand on in this strongly worded letter that he's put together?
Thanks, Flo. Perhaps maybe let's put it this way. I think it's quite clear at this juncture that our democracy needs to be defended and be guarded very jealously. But then the issue is when you want to, or when you are saying that you want to guard and defend a constitutional democracy, you are presupposing that it is under threat. Now the question is, it is under threat from which corner?
Yeah.
And I argue that our democracy is under threat from inequalities, from poverty, and unemployment, and broadly the disenchantment of society, particularly the historically oppressed people.
Yeah.
So I think that for me should be the framing of what is happening.
So it's really, Prof, not about one person. Essentially, is what you're saying at this time. That we've been hearing some of these groups coming up that are saying they are here to defend the Constitution. They are here to defend democracy. But it does kind of give the impression that it's aimed at one particular person. So you're saying this is not about one person, essentially. It
is going to be about one person to the extent that we continuously fail to fundamentally transform this country and give effect to the rights that are in the Bill of Rights, particularly socio-economic rights.
Now, the commission itself stipulates, what the punishment is for refusal to come before it when asked to do so. Why does the chair of the commission approach the Constitutional Court and not just use the sanctions that the commission itself has readily available? Is this the abuse of the Constitutional Court, as was said by, or insinuated rather, by the former president? Why not, in fact, then approach a lower court?
Flo, I've always said that the biggest problem, the challenge that we have today, particularly when we, for instance, talk about the Zondo Commission, when we talk about the former President Jacob Zuma, when we talk about the Constitutional Court, the biggest challenge or the biggest problem that we have is the manner in which we frame the problem or the questions.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, the question that is that says, okay, what is why the commission is acting the way it does, right? It's a useful question for sure, but I do not think that it takes us anywhere to a larger extent. I've always maintained that we need to look at this issue in what I would call a political legal fashion, that it is a political as much as it is a legal matter. Right now, to focus on black letter law, to focus on simply the procedural aspect of it, does not take us anywhere. I think that there is more, and I've maintained that the problem that we're having in this country is the failure, or should I not say the failure, but the inability of the African National Congress to fully transform this country. Black letter law approach, I think, does not take us anywhere. It gives us a very temporary answer to a very big problem.
Yeah, and then, I mean, you talk about the issue of it being political, and one then wonders about the fact that maybe it is starting to look a little bit political, given the fact that the former president isn't exactly the first to refuse to come before the commission, but it seems as though there is a real push to get him in there. So one wonders if those rules that are being applied now, or are being used now, or those sanctions that are that they want to apply now on the former president, will those very same sanctions then be applied to those previously who refused to come before the commission?
You're touching on something which is quite important, Flo. The dominant discourse in the media, particularly, is that the president has been using Stalingrad tactics, meaning that he's been appealing and using court processes to ultimately not appear in or at a particular institutional arrangement. However, my view is that actually there has been a very nuanced movement from Stalingrad tactics to what I would call a strategy of rupture, where the president is now using the law in order to subvert the law. And I think that's a very important shift that we need to recognize.
Yeah, and you know, in closing, as we wrap up our conversation, it is interesting though that, you know, the former president, you know, he initially did say, you know, if they want to arrest him, you know, then arrest me. That's what he said. He said, just arrest me if you have grounds to do so. So why don't they then arrest the former president if they believe that there is indeed sufficient evidence that has come out of the commission and other testimonies? If his arrest is about not appearing before the commission, will more face arrest, as I've said before? I mean, the fact that he has said you can arrest me, and then now will the repercussion of that then be, because then it will be a precedent, will the repercussion of that then be, if you don't come before the commission and those previously who've refused to come, will they then also be arrested? Because the former president has essentially said, it's fine, arrest me.
Let me answer it in this fashion. Obviously, there's a pending decision at the Constitutional Court, and we'll see what happens from there. However, there are quite a number of assumptions that we need to also dispose of as a country. For instance, one of them is the fact that as a country we are still trying to self-define, and I think that's very important. We're trying to find ourselves. We are not a finished product, and some of these things that are happening should also be welcome at the end of the day as part of clarifying our jurisprudence.
Yeah. All right. So, Prof, thank you so very much for speaking to us. Appreciate your time here on SABC News. Professor Isaac Shai, Associate Professor of Public Law at UNISA. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. All
right. Of course, he's weighing in on that strongly worded 8-page statement by the former President Jacob Zuma, lashing out at the conduct of the Constitutional Court and the judiciary, as well as the Commission, I suppose, in general there. Of course, we certainly do watch as it all unfolds.